Welcome to My Stable Relationship, an equestrian performance podcast where we will deep dive into the mindset and management challenges of ourselves and of our peers. Our discussions will allow you to learn from experts, encourage you to set audacious goals, overcome challenges, and develop actionable plans. Ready? Let's do this. Hi everyone, Lauren here, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode of My Stable Relationship. Before we get going today, I want to let you know that I have a really exciting announcement about a giveaway. I will share more detail with you at the end of this podcast episode, but I am giving away 25 free introductory performance coaching sessions. So in particular, if you are interested in this mindset and management work and interested in performance coaching, stick around until the end, and I'm super excited to tell you all about it. I have been well. I've just had a breakthrough with Rio's rehabilitation work that I wanted to share with you prior to jumping into the topic today. So I was working with one of my wonderful coaches last week or the week before, and we were talking about Rio's response every time we half halt him. So he defaults to using his undercarriage and underneck when we half halt, but his center of mass is still driving him forward. So he kind of turns himself upside down and he's no longer relaxed or forward down or engaging his core or working over his back. So it's totally unideal. But she said to me that we actually need to connect the rebalancing half halt aid that I'm using to the shift backwards in his center of mass. As in, maybe he doesn't understand that when I give this half halt aid, he is being asked to shift his center of mass backwards. Right now, he just understands it as like a lifting in his head, and he slightly raises his head and neck against the slight ask. And this was an absolute light bulb moment for me. It was one of those moments where something seems so clear and makes so much sense. And I cannot believe that I didn't think about it 9 years ago when we first started our partnership together. Coaches need coaches, everyone. Coaches need coaches. And thinking back on it, this is possibly one of our biggest communication issues ever between Rio and I. So my most embarrassing story eventing Rio is actually one where I got in trouble from the technical delegate of the event, and I never wanted to break any rules. So this cross-country run really horrified me. For anyone who doesn't know what a technical delegate does, their role is to monitor the event for any sort of dangerous riding or poor horsemanship and anything like that. So it was 6 or 7 years ago, and Rio and I were stepping up a grade at the state championships. I think we either moved from 95 or to 105 or something around that. But back then it was just before the star levels. Now I think that class is the 1-star class. And for anyone outside of Australia, for some reason, Australia events at different heights to everyone else. Like in the UK, I think you do like a 90 or 100, whereas somehow in Australia we've decided we must do 95 and 105. Anyway, all was going well on my run until about jump 5, when I realized I was no longer in control. And I was seriously not in control. All I had was reduced steering ability, no steady, no stop, no actual proper turn. So at that point, he was basically bolting on me. And when I look at the footage, it doesn't look like he was significantly bolting. It just looks like he was in a big rolling canter. But reflecting on it after my breakthrough moment recently, I think what really happened was that I had lost control of his center of mass and he was basically falling forward, kind of like the younger, unstable racehorses that we pull off the track fall forward in their gait. And at that point, my half hold was doing nothing except interfering with his head and neck position. So it was causing his head and neck to lift upwards, engaging his underneck, and it meant that we were running even more hollowed and flat across the course. Now, I was so glad and quite lucky to get out of that run clear, but then I saw my watch showing me my run time. And obviously the idea in eventing is to clear the cross-country course within an optimum amount of time. And the rules may have changed given that I haven't been competitive in a few years, but it used to be the rule that if you were under the optimum time by 45 seconds or more, you were eliminated for dangerous riding. As in, you went around that cross-country course too fast, much faster than you should have. That day on course, the day that I had totally lost control of his center of mass, I was 40 seconds under time. I was so close to being eliminated for dangerous riding that I was actually given a lecture by the technical delegate anyway, which is totally fair enough. Another 5 seconds, and I would have been eliminated, and I would have had a black mark on my record for dangerous riding. And all because I couldn't pull this horse up or steady him. Well, that's what I thought. Now, reflecting on it, I can see that I never actually spent the time teaching Rio or communicating to him that the rebalancing half hold actually indicates a shift in his center of mass, not just me impacting his head position, which is amazing. So, my key learnings for this week are that number one, we never stop learning. Even coaches need coaches. If you have a coach who doesn't have their own coach, I want you to question why. And number two, I now see this as a communication issue that Rio and I have had for a very long time. And I'm super excited to come to a place where we have the same definition of the rebalancing half hold, because I think that both of us will be a bit more clear and a bit more harmonious after that. So really, this is just another level of rehabilitation for us and another level for us to reach in our partnership. And if this at all resonates with you, I would love to hear about any light bulb moments that you've had recently. DM me on Facebook or Instagram at Journey of Equine. And now that you've listened to my very exciting light bulb moment, let's get into the topic for today. Today, I want to talk about another one of my core coaching beliefs. Don't trust the process, trust yourself. Don't trust the process, trust yourself. And there's a few components to this concept, which we will break down as we go. The first is that you've probably all heard the saying, trust the process before. Like last week, this is a saying that I see as like memes or quotes on social media a lot. And like last week, I'm going to offer you a different perspective on it. So what does trust the process normally mean? It means letting go and having faith that everything will eventually work out on its own or in its own time. And don't get me wrong, trusting the process is super useful to more quickly establish a sense of calm and a sense of happiness around your current state. And I'm super happy for you to use it sometimes in this sense. But the saying trust the process runs a huge risk of you stagnating, of staying in your current state and never actually leaving your comfort zone, pushing yourself or achieving any of your goals. So here's how I see it playing out. My clients will do a lot of mindset work and they'll get to this point where they might tell me that they're trusting the process. They're calm, happy, they feel that everything will happen when it's meant to happen. But they had some original goals and dreams that they wanted to achieve. So my next question is nearly always, tell me a bit about that process. Partly because I genuinely want to know what this process is that you've placed all of your trust in, and partly because I'm here to help draw attention to any sort of block or blind spot that there might be. And more often than not, they struggle to articulate any sort of actual process or any steps or actions that they plan on taking. And it's because they don't actually have a full process mapped out to get them from A to Z. They barely have one to get them from A to B. They're using trusting the process a little bit like someone stuck in their dreams, but unwilling to take action. Like someone stuck in their comfort zone, scared or fearful of being stretched outside of it. And as a side note, this is why management is one of my coaching pillars alongside mindset, because these clients normally have really balanced themselves in their mind and they do their mindset work so beautifully. But we need to be careful that they continue to achieve what they want. So there is a balance or a stable relationship to be found here. I'd also like to offer that if you are similar to me and you are taking responsibility for your own journey, let's not wait around and trust the process, a magical process that hasn't actually been outlined or developed. Rather, let's trust yourself. Trust yourself to take action. Trust yourself to step outside of your comfort zone. Trust yourself to plan, prepare, and develop strategies to support you. I want you to trust yourself to take action, get results, and follow your own journey. I want you to trust yourself to do what you said you would, when you said you would. What you said you would, when you said you would. There is a mindset aspect to doing what you said you would, when you would, and there is a management aspect. So the management aspect is about breaking down your goal into actionable plans then establishing the routines and the habits to reach that point. And I can absolutely help you do this in a one-on-one coaching session. This is one of my specialities as a professional project manager. But the mindset piece is an important link, and it is the part most people struggle with. And lots of the time, it seems to stem from a need to find some sort of motivation before you can complete the task or get into the routine. You're battling a sort of like a lack of motivation, and therefore you can't trust yourself to do what you said you would when you said you would, because you just can't guarantee that you will. And if this sounds like you, I am with you. I have been there and done that, but we are about to reframe it together. So let's look at motivation. The definition of motivation is to provide someone with a reason for doing something. And there are so many schools of thought around breaking down motivation, but I'm going to share with you what works for me and my clients to meet our equestrian and our life goals. So, step one, everyone. What is your reason for doing the thing? In some cases, it's really useful to identify if you are motivated by something external or internal. So, external motivation just means that your motivation to reach your goal comes from a source outside of yourself. Things like if the barn owner gives you worming medication for your horse with instructions to have them wormed by a certain date, or if your corporate boss tells you to be at work by 9 a.m., and if you're like me, that job pays for your horse habit, you'll probably be there at 9 a.m. Or as a show rider, your ring might start at 9 a.m. Or as a show jumper, your round might be at 9 a.m. Or even if you're attending a clinic, your slot might be at 9 a.m. And this is perhaps not the time slot that you would have chosen for yourself, but that is the circumstance of the schedule. And I bet you that you will make that time. Given that in this podcast, we are talking about your goals, training or rehabilitating your own horses, or your goals in life more broadly, for the most part, we're talking about internal motivation. And internal motivation means that your motivation to accomplish your goal comes from within you. The motivation is determined and driven by your own values, your own wants, and your own needs. So let's assume for the rest of the episode that we're talking about internal motivation. And as a side note, I just want you to know that you can reframe external motivation into internal motivation and vice versa. But I also won't dive deep into that today. If you'd like to talk further about that, let me know on DMs on Instagram or Facebook. So step two, once we know that the thing you want is internally motivated, I really want to introduce you to the concept of discomfort motivation or inspiration motivation. And these two speak to the reasons why you want to change something. So let's say you want to lose a certain amount of weight before you start riding your horse again. If you are motivated by a sense of excitement to be able to ride again in future, that might be inspiration motivation. But if you're motivated by embarrassment or you're making yourself feel guilty about the weight that you've gained, it's probably driven by discomfort motivation. As another example, I get up every morning at 5:30 a.m. and I do this so that I can start rehabilitation or training with my horses. And I will be the first to admit that some mornings I jump out of bed because I cannot wait to test something or to try another rehabilitation strategy on one of them. And these are the mornings where I am tapping into my inspiration motivation. But on the other mornings, I get up at that time because I know that if I don't stick to my rehabilitation plans, my horses might not be as healthy as I want them to be. And I feel guilty about it. That will be on me. And for me, that's discomfort motivation. And again, we can reframe discomfort motivation into inspiration motivation and vice versa, but we won't go into that today. Very importantly, you actually need both discomfort and inspiration motivation because there's pros and cons of each. So it's more likely that you will take action consistently from discomfort motivation. And your discomfort motivation is normally easier to tap into. But like my examples before showed you, it can be quite detrimental to your mindset depending on how you're looking at things. Inspiration motivation can send you into like immediate and full on action, but you can either become burned out quite easily, or maybe you actually never get started. So there are types of people who feel fulfilled from like a dream-like state, and they actually reach that point of urgency to get things done. So that's why we need to watch inspiration, motivation sometimes. I'm not saying either is better. You need both, and you need both for different situations. But you know yourself best. Which of these states is easier for you to take action from? Is it discomfort motivation or is it inspiration motivation? For me, it's inspiration motivation. I am a dreamer. I'm curious and I love to learn. And I tend to need to watch my mindset really carefully if I'm in too much discomfort motivation. So for you, it might be the total opposite and for different reasons. And this goes back to the last episode where we said that your thoughts create your feelings, which determine your actions. Is your motivation, that's the feeling, everyone, is your motivation driven by discomfort or inspirational thoughts? What's your preference? How do you work best? Do you need to reframe this before moving forward? Step 3. This is the real base level of it, everyone. It's like looking at a triangle, and at the tip of the triangle is your inspiration motivation. In the middle is your discomfort motivation. And at the base of that triangle, on the days that you cannot muster discomfort or inspiration motivation enough to get going, I need you to fall back onto discipline. That's at the base of the triangle, discipline. You cannot rely on motivation alone to reach your goals and dreams. Motivation always needs to be underpinned by discipline. And what do I mean? So let's use those 2 examples again. Let's say you want to lose a certain amount of weight before you start riding your horse again. We talked about inspiration motivation if you can't wait to get started in learning, or discomfort if you're feeling embarrassed or guilty and you're driven to change because of it. With the example of me getting up early to rehabilitate or train my horses, we talked about inspiration motivation on the days where I'm curious to test a new rehab strategy, or we talked about discomfort motivation on the days where I know I've committed to their plans or I'm holding the horses for the vet or the farrier or something like that. But here is where discipline comes in for both of those examples, and probably for lots of the examples that I'm sure you're thinking of currently outside of the horse world. On the days that you want to quit, when you feel overwhelmed and it all becomes too hard, when you just think, why would one day off matter? I'll start again next Monday. When that other side of you shows up and provides that alternative, I need you to assess whether the alternative moves you to take action towards the goal that you originally set. If that alternative does not move you to take action towards the goal that you've originally set, it's a clear indicator that you have lost all forms of motivation. And at this point, you need to trust yourself to fall back onto discipline. What does that mean? It means that I need you to get up and do the thing as if you were subject to external motivation instead of waiting for internal motivation. Get up and go as if your boss had booked that meeting for you, as if you had an appointment that you cannot miss. Trust yourself to meet the appointment in your calendar without bargaining yourself out of it. If you imagine it as an appointment that you're holding with someone else, a human or with your horse, for a very important reason, you are more likely to meet it and you are more likely to be disciplined about it. Turn the internal motivation or the lack of internal motivation into either external motivation or into discipline. And this is so important. Again, you know by now one of my main focuses is on equine rehabilitation. So if you have a rehab horse, I guarantee that they are meant to be on a rehabilitation training plan, and that plan involves a certain amount of hand walking or massage or lunging or groundwork or whatever each day. And if you are waiting around for motivation in whatever form before you get up and go help your horse, it will never be rehabilitated to the extent that it could have been. And trust me, I know this because I've been subject to this myself. Treat it as an appointment that you have set with someone outside of yourself. Get up and go. Because in the case of a rehabilitation horse, and similar if you're training your own horse, your horse's progression and your progression as the rider or the trainer depends on you meeting those commitments. Now, some of you will be thinking, but I'm not disciplined, or I don't want to be disciplined. And we will address this in a full episode in future, just dedicated to the topic of discipline, because it's something I hear a lot through my clients. But you are probably disciplined enough to brush your teeth every day, get to work on time most days, feed your children meals, feed your horse daily meals, stick to the road rules. Like when a traffic light goes red, I bet that you stop at the intersection. Motivation in either form might be what gets you started, but discipline will be what keeps you going. Motivation might be what gets you started, but discipline needs to be what keeps you going. And this is when you can really trust yourself and not the process. Once you are disciplined, you own that process. You can trust yourself to have an established, rock solid plan and process, and the process doesn't appear out of thin air or if you wait for it. You can trust yourself that you are building habits, which means you are making progress. You won't need to feel motivated or feel good to get things done, which will keep you on track towards your goals faster and more consistently than you have been previously. And by now, you know I love quotes. So I've got a quote for you today. Today's quote is, "Don't wait for your feelings to change to take the action. Take the action and your feelings will change." Thank you, Barbara Barron. Once more, don't wait for your feelings to change to take the action. Take the action and your feelings will change. So don't trust the process, trust yourself. I'm going to give you some actionable takeaways to get you on the path of determining if you're motivated or taking action, and if not, possibly what those consequences are. So, action item number 1, I'd like you to decide on some life categories. And these will be the key categories of your life that you want to focus your energy on. It's really hard to even have a plan or a process if you don't know what's important to you. And the size of your plan will match the size of your vision. So when I work with my clients, we use a life wheel exercise to map this into charts and track it. So if you're familiar with that wheel, then that is your first step instead. Otherwise, I just want you to take a pen and paper and I want you to write down 5 to 8 broad categories that you want to focus your energy on in life. So as an example, mine are horses, family, relationships, career, physical health, and personal development. One of my clients does a lot for charity, so contribution is one of theirs. Another one of my clients is an artist, as well as being an equestrian, so one of theirs is creativity. You can change them later, but I just need you to broadly decide on your important categories. And then action item number 2, I want you to answer 3 questions. So you can pause and rewind me if you need to write these down. And you only need to spend a few minutes journaling on these to have a breakthrough or a realization. So give yourself 10 minutes and just write whatever comes to your mind. So the 3 questions are, number 1, which category or multiple categories do you feel like you aren't taking action towards? And remember, this could be perhaps you don't even have goals outlined for them, even though they're important to you. Or you might have goals and plans, but you're not making any steps towards them. Have a think, which category or multiple categories do you feel like you aren't taking action towards? Question number 2, what are the consequences of not taking action in this category? And question number 3, what is one small thing that you will commit to doing to move towards your goal in that category? Now, I really want you to focus on something small enough that you immediately feel you can trust yourself to complete it, no matter how much motivation you might or might not have. If you're not so sure that you'll complete the task, you've either chosen something that's too big, you need to break it down further, or you're not trusting in yourself to have the discipline or the motivation. You need to allow yourself a chance to build up this trust by starting with a really small and really achievable task. And if you need help with trusting yourself, not the process, if you do the life wheel exercise or you write down your categories and you find that you've actually got some gaps and you need help in certain areas, let me know. I take performance coaching clients on a one-on-one basis at the moment, and I would love to start making changes that will impact the quality of your equestrian rehabilitation and training and the quality of your life more broadly. We will balance your life inside and outside of the arena so that you can find your version of a stable relationship. Now, before you go, and relevant to what I was just saying about one-on-one performance coaching, I promised that I was going to share a very exciting announcement with you. To celebrate this podcast launching and to thank you for all of your support so far, I am giving away 25 free introductory performance coaching sessions. This is the perfect opportunity for any equestrian who is perhaps feeling a bit confused or stuck with their horse. And in particular, you know that the rehab cases are close to my heart. But any other type of stuck is totally welcome. Or even if you feel stuck in life more broadly and it's not entirely equestrian focused, you are welcome to bring a specific mindset or management topic to chat about, or just come as you are and we will find our way in the session. There are some prompts in the sign-up sheet, so just fill them in as best you can, depending on what you're hoping to speak about. The sign-up link is available now in the podcast show notes, in my Instagram bio, and I'll put a link up on Facebook announcing it as well. And if you think that you would like a chance at performance coaching, or if you know of another equestrian who would, please head straight to the link and sign up. There are 25 spots available for the month of July, and I'm not quite sure if we'll do this type of giveaway again. And as a quick note, if any of the time slots don't work with your current time zone, please just send me a quick DM on Instagram or Facebook at Journey of Equine. And if there's still some of those 25 available, I will work to swap the time, so hopefully we can better match our time zones. And with that exciting announcement, I just want to say thank you again for tuning in today. Please subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any episodes, and follow along on the socials. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. My goal is to help you more effectively train or rehabilitate your horse by focusing on your mindset and management, both inside and outside of the arena. If this sounds like something you'd like one-on-one help with, or if you'd like to follow along for more, come and join me on Instagram or Facebook at Journey of Equine. The links will be in the show notes. Have a great week, everyone.